So this is a real pleasure for me. We're pleased to introduce to you our keynote speaker, who is also my friend and sister for the evening. As many of you embark on your academic journeys, you may relate to many of the things that Dr. Muna Minkara talks about. Reflect on how this applies to you and consider her extraordinary resilience. Dr. Minkara's story is a testament to her power of perseverance and adaptability in overcoming challenges. Now let's learn more about her remarkable journey and the lessons we can draw from her experience. Just going to give you a little bit of a bio before I hand it over to Muna. Dr. Muna Minkara is a blind assistant professor of bioengineering at Northeastern University, advocate and travel vlogger, lives by the maximum that vision is more than sight. As a computational chemist, Muna's research explores pulmonary surfactants, which is a substance composed of lipids and proteins on the air-liquid interface of the lungs. Raised in the Boston area with her two siblings by Lebanese immigrant parents, Muna was diagnosed with macular degeneration and cone-rod dystrophy at age 7. Muna obtained her undergraduate degree at Wellesley College, her doctoral degree in chemistry at the University of Florida, and held a postdoctoral position at the University of Minnesota for 4 years before coming home to Boston as a faculty member at Northeastern University. At Northeastern, Muna's Combine, which stands for Computational Modeling for Biosurface Engineering Laboratory, utilizes computational chemistry to study interactions that occur at biological interfaces. As a professor, Muna is deeply passionate about making scientific materials accessible to blind and low vision individuals, especially students. To further her goal of bringing awareness to low vision independent travelers and thinkers, Muna documents her adventures globe-trotting the world using public transportation in her travel vlogging YouTube series, Planes, Trains, and Canes. And I encourage everyone to go and check those out. So, Muna, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, first of all, Nahida, thank you so much for that intro. I don't know what's left for me to talk about, but I think I will maybe begin at the beginning. So I hope everybody's doing well. And I was invited today to speak about my experience and share with you wisdom. We'll see. We'll see how well I do. So, as you all heard, I am blind. I only can see light. I was diagnosed when I was 7 years old, and I always tell everybody that I've always had a love for science. I've always had a love for science, but we live in a world in which we think that people who are blind shouldn't be scientists. So I grew up in the public school systems here in Massachusetts, and that love that I had for science didn't change. So I continued, and subhanAllah, like it was like, I don't know, it was like event after event of me kind of realizing that even though nobody really expected me to do much, that I still just wanted to continue learning science. And there were times in which I was like put in lower level classes because I was blind. Um, and I don't know, I just took it one day at a time and, you know, asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide me, and my curiosity kind of pushed through. Eventually, I ended up going to undergrad, and that was like a whole new world. I was the first ever blind individual to graduate from Wellesley College with a science degree. Wellesley's been around since 1875, and I genuinely didn't know what I was going to do. But subhanAllah, my curiosity towards chemistry kind of increased, but also my curiosity about my background. So I actually ended up doing a double major in chemistry and Middle Eastern studies because I really deeply believe that we all need to know our roots. And it was like 50-50 for me if I wanted to go into a PhD in history or a PhD in chemistry, but I found chemistry to be a little bit more interesting. I went off to grad school And I think throughout my entire journey, subhanAllah, I had this deep sense of internalized ableism. What is ableism? Ableism is when you have a preconceived notion. It's kind of like racism and other isms, right? It's when you have a negative preconceived notion of somebody because of their disability. And subhanAllah, I had that towards myself. I had always felt like I was lacking, right? That something was wrong, that I was broken, that I had to overcome my blindness. And it wasn't until I was actually applying for jobs to be a postdoc until I got actually a job offer. I didn't even have applied to this place. It was University of Minnesota, and it was this advisor, J. Elliot Seatman, actually reached out to me and was like, "I see you're looking for a job. I heard you're looking for a job. You have a job in my lab if you want it." I didn't even apply. Subhanallah. So I remember having an interview with him, and I did everything you're not supposed to do in an interview. Okay. I basically sat down with this professor and I was like, why do you want me in your lab? Do you know that I'm blind? Do you know that I'm slow? Do you know that, like, and I just like list all of my flaws or what I perceive. And he goes, yes, but because you are blind, you're gonna solve problems that nobody else has solved. And he said it so nonchalantly, subhanAllah. And he said it so matter of fact. And I remember being blown away and being like, Ya Allah, I have to now go to Minnesota. It's so cold in Minnesota, you guys. I went from living in Florida to Minnesota. And I went on this journey of realizing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created all of us differently and that we are meant to be different. And that if science was truly going to progress, if society was truly going to progress, we need to have all different types of people involved in problem solving. And it took me a while to realize that our religion actually like doesn't see a flaw in somebody who has a disability. It's Allah's creation. And subhanAllah, I like continued on that journey, and it actually is probably one of the main reasons why I was able to eventually get a job as an assistant professor in bioengineering. So just to let you all know a little bit. So I'm a tenure track professor. So what that means is there's different types of professorships, but tenure track means I have to not only teach, but have to have my own innovative research ideas that I have to almost defend when I apply to these jobs. I have to kind of prove to the committee that my research idea is not just good enough, but it will bring money to the university. So it's probably like alhamdulillah, it's one of the most prestigious like professorship tracks that you can get. And I don't think I would have really been able to get to that point if I really didn't believe to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like that there was khair in how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me, right? That not just khair just from a I accept, but I tell a story of how I was studying this protein. I was like, or doing computational modeling on this protein. And because I couldn't see the data like my sighted peers, I actually had to develop my own technique. And because of that technique, I discovered attributes about this protein that my sighted peers missed. There was an advantage to actually being blind at that moment. So alhamdulillah, I get this job. But I also along the way learned two things that I want to share to all of you, which is always work with ikhlas so that you can have barakah in what you do. So what does that mean? So ikhlas is you work to completion. You aim to do well. I'm not saying that you're such a perfectionist that it stops you from doing it. No. I'm saying that you work with thoroughness. And when you approach everything in your life with a level of thoroughness, then that will allow you to have barakah. What is barakah? Barakah is when 1 plus 1 is more than 2, right? It's the concept of, let's say you and your friend are hungry and all you had is one date. There's more barakah with you splitting that date with a friend, splitting whatever food it is with a friend, than just you eating it. or them eating, right? That's barakah. Barakah is when there is more khair, there's goodness that happens in the work that you do. So you should aim to always have barakah in your time, which means you should always be honest with your time. So if you're working in a job, make sure that you are working those minutes you're getting paid for, right? You should always also have barakah in your money. Make sure your money's halal. Make sure that you're doing good with your money, right? And those are things that are going to really help you go far. Because at the end of the day, you and I, we can work hard. But really, at the end of the day, we need to have our intentions clear and our connections close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's what's gonna really make us help us make an impact in this world. And may Allah make all of us, every single one of us on this call, do khair in this world, have a positive impact on this world. Okay, so with that, I think my time is up. I don't know if there's a Q&A, but thank you all for listening. And I'm really honored to be here today. And I'm really honored to know that there's a new generation of Muslims that are trying to go out in the world and make a positive impact.
Thank you, Muna. That's amazing. You know what? I'm a little biased because Muna is someone who I look up to. She is incredible. Her resilience and perseverance, and she's really a role model for women, for Muslim girls, and she really aspires and does what she can to continue her advocacy work in this aspect. I really encourage everyone to go on YouTube and look up her show. It's actually pretty cool. Trains, planes, and cranes.
Planes, trains, and canes. So it's like all the
Canes,
modes that
sorry,
I
yes.
use, right? I use a plane, and then I also use a train, and then I use my cane because I'm blind. So yeah, planes, trains, and canes. I also like really encourage. You can check out my research website. It's minkaracombinelab.com. That's Minkara combine, COMBINE, lab.com. And then monaminkara.com also has everything, like from blind science tools to my research, like everything is on there too.
Well, you already have some subscribers, Muna. We do have time for a short question and answer period. So if anyone has any questions or anything like that, please put them in the chat. Maybe I'll start off by saying, as you were growing up, trying to navigate life being blind or low vision, visually impaired, what sort of support systems were really instrumental to making sure you get to where you are now?
So that's a really good question, and there's like many layers to it. So first of all, my family, thank you to my parents for everything they did, and honestly to my community, but also the fact that we had the ADA. It was like by law, so we had grounds to be able to advocate for the things that I needed when we figured out that that's like how it works. So that also took a little bit of time. Sometimes it's really important to kind of, as immigrants or kids of immigrants, like we might not necessarily understand all the systems, so it's really good to take time to understand them. But yeah, just the ADA. Advocating for an equitable access to education um, was also instrumental.
Yeah, I know Canada and the US are a little different in terms of what supports we have. But all to say, there are supports available to ensure that you are successful. And what Max and MSF offers is one of those support systems. So hopefully take advantage of that. Muna, I had another question. You Sayed shared your YouTube video in the chat. So now that you are in a place where you are, how do you find people approach you? I mean, you're a professor, you are visually impaired, you are doing research in science nonetheless, which is like something I've always been told not to do if you're visually impaired. How do you separate yourself from, I am a researcher, I'm not just someone who's visually impaired doing research? if that makes sense.
Your questions are so deep. Okay. Like, um, so this is a very deep question. So first of all, it is hard. And so sometimes like, I don't usually actually share my story publicly unless I believe in the cause or they're paying me, to be completely honest. I'm like, you want me to talk? I'll tell you about my research. Um, so that's one thing, right? I really it's a very deliberate decision who I spend time and like share my story with. Um, Especially like, with people that I don't know. I think that's really important. And then I really like, I try to put myself in the environment as much as I can to present about my research because that's really that's where my passion is. I feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like that's the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put for me. And I love it. And I'm really happy to be a scientist. Of course, I believe in the advocacy, so I do that too. But yeah, I don't know. Like I just it's a situation by situation.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I wanted to share some comments that we got in the chat, just because I know you might not be able to read them right away.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I don't have the voiceover on right now, so I
yeah, so we have a comment that says, "This isn't a question, but just wanted to say your story is beautiful and inspiring, Dr. Minkara. Thank you for sharing." Another one, your story is a true testament of enlightenment of mind and heart with light of passion and knowledge. Thank you for
Oh my
all
God,
the
it's
great
so
work that
beautiful.
you
Your
do.
wow, subhanAllah. So beautiful. These comments are, yeah, okay.
Nadim, you wrote Muskoka. I actually don't know that reference, so I don't know if you want to jump on and
For
explain that
everybody
reference,
listening, you
Nadim.
also have to make sure your ego doesn't grow. Like,
And then another comment, what a beautiful story. SubhanAllah, you're a true inspiration to all of us. Okay. I'm not gonna put you on the spot anymore, Mana. I think I've asked you enough deep questions.
if anybody from the audience wants to ask, I'm totally open to. If there's time, I don't know if
Yeah.
there.
If there's another comment that says, thank you for drawing attention to legislation empowering continuity and community and for sharing your wisdom and experiences. You're truly remarkable and your faith is inspiring. I think everyone is still starstruck, Muna, um, just listening to your story, but I know that oh, sorry, there is a missed question. Hold on.
I'd love to hear their voice if they want to.
If anyone has a voice, if anyone has a question, feel free to open your microphones. I can speak forever about Muna's achievements in science and research
Yeah,
and
yeah, listen.
the remarkable things that she's doing and the recognitions that she's getting. But I am biased, as I said. She's a friend. Um, just another comment who mentions I have a family member with a disability, and we often face comments that underestimate his abilities. Thank you so much for the hope and inspiration you bring, especially to families and individuals with
Yeah,
disabilities.
that's a very common problem. Yeah.
All right. I think everyone, like I said, is
Hey,
still
I have a
here.
question.
Oh, go ahead.
I couldn't find the hand raising function, so I just jumped.
Go ahead. Go
Um,
ahead. Yeah.
so, Mona, first of all, I want to apologize. I actually just joined like 5 minutes ago. I had to go run out and do something. My wife has been watching. So my question might be something that's already been answered, but I got involved with DEI back in around 2012, 2013 when I finished my master. So my master was in immigration, looking at the minority impact of security policies and its impact in othering Muslims and people that resemble the Muslim identity. So when I finished my master's, I worked in Pan Am Games around diversity, inclusion, accessibility. And I know at that time AODA was a big thing, 2010 AODA policy legislation. So if you look at the last decade, do you feel that there's been a lot of progress in terms of making sure things are more inclusive for a person that are visually impaired like yourself? And or do you think there's a lot of work remaining and there's been a lot of roadblocks in the legislative frameworks that have been implemented?
Okay, so I can speak. I can only speak from the American perspective. because I'm here. So I don't know about the Canadian perspective, but okay, so yes, we've made progress. In the past decade, we've definitely made some progress. I mean, just even 10 years ago, even when people talked about diversity, like disability wasn't even on the list. They would just mention, gender diversity and racial diversity, but like people just forgot about the disabled community. Now it's brought up, it's discussed. I mean, I'm working on a project where we're working on making literature, scientific literature, accessible. So like working on making sure like figures are alt texted and stuff like that. So I'm working with the editor in chief of science, and so like people are we're in the midst of it. I would say we're making progress. We still have a way to go.
All right. Omar, you had a question. You disappeared.
Oh, one more thing I want to say, just on a not a legislative level, but for example, one of the things I'm doing is I have a page called Blind Scientist Tools, and so I've listed all the tools I've ever used as a blind scientist and some that we're developing right now to make science accessible. So, and we were like on NPR, that's the national public radio here, which was amazing, so it's getting attention, alhamdulillah.
Okay, I know Omar had a question. I don't know if he's having tech issues, but we did have one question in the chat, Muna.
Sure.
There's a student that has a question on STEM curriculum for the blind. She had the opportunity to go onto your website and wanted to know if she's able to connect with you to understand adaptability on different settings as she's
Sure.
working on
Actually,
education
yeah.
for out of school.
So let me tell you a little bit about the blind STEM curriculum. It's actually was a cool project we implemented in Lebanon. And it was a low cost, accessible, so all the activities could be done by a blind student safely. And we had like Lebanese, Syrian, and Palestinian kids that were blind doing this curriculum. It's 2 weeks. It was materials you can find around the home, like nothing fancy. We're still in the midst of copywriting it. I really need to copyright it so I can start sharing it. But yeah, it has just all sorts of different activities, from growing your own plants to building bridges that are engineeringly sound to making your own record player or fizzy lemonade, or you know what I mean, discussing endothermic exothermic reactions. Like it's all over, like it covers a lot of different types of science.
I think Zainab, you should be able to find Muna's details on her website, her email. Feel free to email her and she'll be
Yeah, you
able
can
to
contact me through my website. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, one last question. I think Omar, you have your hand up.
Yeah, do you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about the mic. I don't know. I just opened my mic and they kicked me out of the meeting. But mashallah, Muna, your story is very inspiring. I just had a quick question. How do you deal with imposter syndrome when you just go into the room and sometimes you feel like people have an advantage over you? How do you deal with that?
Oh my God. Okay, this is a very deep question, very good question. So recognize that most people have imposter syndrome. Okay, that's the first thing. And then you realize that you go through cycles, right? Sometimes you're like, I'm doing good, alhamdulillah, and sometimes you're like, oh my God, like what? Like, all these people are ahead of me. But then recognize that you just need to focus on your own journey, and you need to you just have to bear with it. And like, I don't know, for me, sometimes the best way to deal with my imposter syndrome is just like keep at working, or try to keep at understanding whatever it is that I'm dealing with, or I'll give you a very concrete example. Okay, let's make it concrete. So it wasn't until this year in which I actually got grants for my research. So I had been a professor here at Northeastern for 4 years and had gotten 0 grants. So my imposter syndrome was like really high. Okay. And I was like, oh my God, like, can I actually make it? Like, am I going to make it as a scientist? Like, I need to bring in the money, like all of that. So subhanAllah, I was like, you know what? You need to get grants, Mona. You need to clear off everything and just focus on getting grants. So last summer, for like 4 months, I told everybody that I was grounded. Literally, like I didn't fly anywhere, I didn't go anywhere, and every day, other than Saturday and Sunday, so every day of the week, like every work day, I woke up every day, and then I read Surah Al-Baqarah. Okay, I read Surah Al-Baqarah so that I could have barakah in my time. Surah Al-Baqarah eases things for you, and that's a commitment, right? So I read Surah Al-Baqarah, and then la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Every day I walked to work. Every day I worked on it, and I just worked on it. I didn't even know if I'd succeeded, but I have to do it. I did not know another blind person who was a scientist who had actually achieved being able to write grants and got them. So I did that. And subhanAllah, and it's a long time for you to hear back on grants. Like 8 months later. So I'm just gonna tell you, now I have two grants that are one of the most prestigious grants I can get. Alhamdulillah. Like I now, like together they're almost worth $3 million. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's
Yes.
great. Thank you,
It's a great
Muna.
story because it has a great ending. Like, but
Thank
I
you.
think what helped is honestly like you just have to let go and you just have to keep on trying. Sometimes it works and sometimes it didn't. And that was my second or third time trying on these grants.
Lots of well wishes for you in the comment section.